Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. December 9th, 1965. Thousands of people watch as a massive fireball streaks across the night sky and crashes into a nearby forest.
A large object was seen to come down in a wooded area, and witnesses actually claimed that this strange object was the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, looked like what appeared to be a giant acorn.
The phones went off in all of the volunteer fire departments all around. We have a plane crash in the woods at Kecksburg. Well, there was a man named Jim Romansky, and I had a real privilege to talk with him directly in March of 1998, because he was one of only about 10 people who stood around this object in that forest officially as a volunteer fireman, walking around and trying to understand what are we looking at. And he said it was like an acorn, and at the top it was copper colored, and then in the bottom it was a darker color, and there was a band about 4 inches wide, and raised up, not carved in, were symbols that went around a portion of this craft.
Suddenly, the military entered the area, cordoned it off, and the whole thing was essentially hushed up.
The official report from NASA stated that the object was debris from a Russian satellite. Even though witnesses claimed it changed direction several times. For ancient astronaut theorists, this UFO event is particularly intriguing because the object's unusual shape bears a striking resemblance to flying objects described in ancient Indian texts.
The craft itself is an acorn-shaped craft. Immediately, that's reminiscent of what the ancient Indian text described as the Vimana, which were acorn-shaped craft.
In the Mahabharata and in many of the ancient Vedic texts, they speak about the so-called Vimanas. The Vimanas were flying vehicles with which to reach the celestial realm.
In the ancient Sanskrit epics of India, there are highly detailed descriptions of the Vimana, which carried the gods and other important figures through the sky. The acorn-shaped craft were even incorporated at the very top of many Hindu temples.
In Hindu texts, such as the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, the Vimana is primarily a flying ship that God used to travel back and forth between spaces in heaven, from one planet to another planet, from one universe to another universe, and also come to Earth.
When we match up eyewitness accounts of the acorn-shaped craft with the ancient Vimanas, we have to be open to seriously question if these are in fact ancient craft that are now appearing in our modern world.
The Kailasa temple is part of a complex of cave temples that are found at a site in India that is known as Ellora. Here there are over 30 cave temples. All of them are intricately carved out of solid rock into the side of a mountain. It is a whole complex of cloisters and walkways and auxiliary shrines. And it's a complex that is twice the size of the Parthenon in Athens.
It is an absolute magnificent feat of engineering and also logistics. And archaeologists have determined that over a time of 18 years, the builders scooped it out over 400,000 tons of rock. That means they had a workforce and they worked for 12 hours each day. They would still have to remove 5 tons of rock every hour. And even if they worked for 24 hours a day, that would still mean 2.5 tons of rock per hour. Who does that? We can't do that today.
In The Secret Doctrine by Madame H.P. Blavatsky, a mystical compendium authored in 1888, She asserts that the European scholars and archaeologists are all wrong about sites like Ellora. She asserts that it's the Brahmins and the yogis that have a real understanding of the simple fact that beneath sites like Ellora, there are innumerable secret passageways, caverns, corridors, and labyrinths.
And it was said that these caves went to an underground super cave where there were energy machines and other ancient devices from the world before. Some kind of extraterrestrial machines, the ones that had made these tunnels.
Could it be that some of the stories in Hindu mythologies are true, that speak of wondrous machines that were able to carve and cut things just with the push of a button? I think that it's quite possible that at some point extraterrestrials gave technology to our ancestors, that they taught them how to use them, because the extraterrestrials never dirtied their hands, ever. All they did was give instructions. And this is why these holy places began. So the idea is that the Kailasa temple was one of the places where direct physical contact happened with extraterrestrials.
The Republic of India, situated on the subcontinent of South Asia. In the southern portion of the country are the ruins of a vast temple complex known as Vijayanagara. Translated as the City of Victory, this site once was the prosperous capital of the largest and most powerful Hindu kingdom in all of India.
Vijayanagara is said to have been built in the 14th century AD. However, there's a lot of evidence to show that it's a much older city. And in fact, Hindu legends say that the ancient king Rama met with his monkey god friend Hanuman there at a cave at Vijayanagara. And this would put this city back many thousands of years.
This general region of southern India had human occupation perhaps hundreds of thousands of years. While the city of Vijayanagara is certainly the largest settlement that ever existed, there were civilizations that existed there much earlier.
According to scholars, the temples of Vijayanagara were built using ancient geometric and mathematical formulas found only in Vastu Shastra, a traditional Hindu system of design based on aligning art and architecture with the elemental properties of earth, water, air, fire, and space.
Vastu architecture is unique because it creates structures that are supposed to resonate with earth and cosmic energies. When you create a structure, you want the building to be in harmony with the earth. If you think of the earth as embedded in a space nervous system, and that the solar system is embedded in a space universe, it's all one nervous system. Well, the earth itself is tied to the rest of the universe by this, and receives and emanates energy by using this nervous system. And these temples illustrate that perfectly. It could be that these spaces were used as a technology to go deep within human consciousness and communicate with the gods.
The origins of Vastu architecture can be traced in ancient India's Sangam literature to a mythic hero called Mamuni Mayan, who lived some 10 to 12,000 years ago. But who, or what, was this mysterious ancient figure? According to Hindu beliefs, Mamuni Mayan is revered as the Visvakarman, the Lord of creation, and the deity who designed and fabricated the divine architecture of the universe. But might this god really have been an extraterrestrial entity, as ancient astronaut theorists believe? Researchers point to clues carved in stone throughout the ancient Vastu temples of Vijayanagara.
Vijayanagara was thought to be a city that connected people to the gods. The gods themselves were said to have lived in this city. Shiva and Rama. Many of the strange statues there are of certain aspects of Vishnu. And he looks like some kind of strange extraterrestrial god. These are statues that still exist today at Vijayanagara.
According to the myths and legends, this is a very holy place. Why? Because Rama, one of the incarnation of Vishnu. Rama is a god. He had been to this place. That's how this place has become very sacred.
Further evidence of the actual nature of the Hindu gods can be found in ancient Hindu scriptures. Epic poems like the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, and sacred texts called Vedic literature contain multiple references to flying objects of various shapes and sizes.
In ancient Vedic literature, they say that they had Vimanas, which are anti-gravity aircraft, and that they flew around on them. And the Vimana's construction is detailed in the Mahabharata and some of the other ancient books that have come to us from that time and stories.
At Vijayanagara, you have the traditional Hindu Vastu architecture. You have, therefore, the stone temples that are conical in shape. So the architecture itself was sort of a copy of the airships or rockets or spaceships that they called Vimanas.
At Vijayanagara, they were using Vastu technology, and Vastu technology has been used to make flying vehicles. The technology is there to create weapons, to probably create an energy that could power a spaceship.
The Vimanas we would call today space shuttle. Flying machines. Now we have different sort of space shuttle. A Russian space shuttle doesn't look like an American space shuttle, and so on. So in ancient India, we have different descriptions of Vimanas, with wings, with all kinds of lights and so on. And out of these Vimanas, so-called gods came.
The Himalayas, northern India. Every summer, hundreds of thousands of Hindu pilgrims brave an arduous journey. They cross many miles of deadly terrain to reach the Amarnath cave, a place of worship for thousands of years.
12,756 feet above sea level in the Himalayas is the most revered holy pilgrimage site for all of the people who follow the Hindu faith.
People die because of high altitude sickness. There's a simple fall off the cliff. And still people go there because it is considered to be the most holiest shrine.
According to local lore, this massive cave is where the god Shiva revealed the secrets of immortality and the creation of the universe to his wife Parvati. To honor Shiva, worshippers pay their respects to a sacred relic inside, an ice lingam, which they believe is a physical manifestation of his generative power.
To reveal the secret to transcending the flesh, the secret to true immortality, makes that site of extreme importance to the people in the Hindu faith.
To the Hindu faithful who risk life and limb to reach the Amarnath cave, this story is a real account of an otherworldly being who is at this exact location here on Earth. But could the enlightenment found inside caves be coming from an extraterrestrial source inside the Earth? Some ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and suggest evidence of this might be found in the fabled nirvana known as Shambhala and the sky caves of Mustang in Nepal.
Some say Shambhala is a mythical city that's located somewhere in the mountains in the Himalayas. Its inhabitants are supposed to be fully enlightened beings who have access to a great amount of technology, which comes from the Enlightenment itself.
Buddhism has always seen caves as more or less a conduit to altered states of consciousness, to other civilizations that may exist inside the Earth.
The sky caves in Mustang are interesting because there are 100 or so man-made caves carved into the faces of cliffs and are only accessible by these huge vertical shafts. And inside these caves, we have huge statues of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas.
And Buddhists are not alone in this belief. Hindus also revere caves as places where monks can go to find wisdom.
The sadhu are Indian holy men who basically leave a life of deprivation, self-imposed exile in caves, so that they can enter these altered states of consciousness. They definitely believe that caves are a conduit to communicating with non-human entities.
It's almost as though they're opening a doorway to a spiritual consciousness in which they're able to communicate with these divine beings and hopefully become divine themselves.
Why are there so many accounts of humans having enlightening experiences inside caves? Is there something about caves themselves that facilitate such extraordinary experiences? Could it be that these people are coming into contact with an extraterrestrial presence? Ancient astronaut theorists suggest that cosmic knowledge may be stored in the very walls of these caves themselves.
I don't think that this is a coincidence that places of refuge, spiritual refuge, are inside caves. This is where one can contemplate, one can hear one's inner voice without the distractions of the day.
One thing about caves is they're underground, they're unseen. Well, religion is about unseen things. Going into a cave is going into holy ground.
If we're looking for extraterrestrials, ironically, the heavens above might not be the best place to look. We should perhaps even be looking deep below our feet.
In some ways, exploring the underground cavern world of planet Earth is the final frontier.